The Oscars, it's a time when a bunch of preening morons get together and pat themselves on the back, give each other awards, give each other thousands of dollars in swag bags, fly in on their private jets, lecture about climate change, and then tell us why they ought to be the moral guides for the rest of us. People wonder why the Oscars have been sliding for years and years and years. And sure, it's the quality of the films. And sure, it's the fact that the theater experience has been watered down by streaming, and it's been watered down by the fact that there's so much good TV. And sure, it's the fact that fewer people watch each of these Best Picture nominees than they did back in, say, 2000, 2001. However, there's another problem. And this is something that the Oscars simply cannot get over, and they will never get over, and this is why the Oscars are never coming back. The problem is, people in Hollywood have always thought of themselves as America's moral betters, and they just are not. And that gap between Hollywood and the rest of America becomes clearer every single year. And this year was just excellent, like par excellence, like chef's kiss example of why these people should never run anything about your life, why people associated with them should never run anything about your life, why they are a bunch of low IQ idiots with no moral compass, and why when they stand there and lecture you about your moral code and how Hollywood is supposed to be America's representative to the world, we should really be looking for another representative to the world because my goodness. The only reason to talk about the Oscars, of course, because no one watched them. More people will hear about them on the show than probably watched the Oscars in its entirety last night. The only reason to talk about this is because the Oscars used to be a sort of cultural totem for the United States. It was our chief export abroad. Hollywood was the exporter of American ideas and American ideology and the American vision to the rest of the world. This is true in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. And now Hollywood has largely become an afterthought in the sort of global cultural milieu. And if people do think of Hollywood, it's only how do we ban the Hollywood movies so it doesn't corrupt the youth, right? That seems to be the way that authoritarian countries approach Hollywood movies. And yet here in the United States, the media treat the Oscars as though it is a gathering of great luminaries, intellectual luminaries, moral luminaries, who are going to come together in a sort of conclave to figure out the moral code by which we must all live. So it began last night. The Oscars began last night with a small controversy over whether the president of Ukraine, Vladimir Zelensky, was going to appear on the Oscars. Now, I have to say, I'm not sure why Vladimir Zelensky should appear on the Oscars. Every time there's an international conflagration, should that person appear on the Oscars? Seems like a weird take. But Sean Penn was very hot and bothered about the idea that Vladimir Zelensky would not appear on the Oscars because, after all, Vladimir Zelensky is a Hollywood star in one of the Best Picture nominees. Or alternatively, he's the leader of a country at war. In any case, Sean Penn was very upset about all of this.
If presenters have elected not to pursue the leadership in Ukraine who are taking bullets and bombs for us, along with the Ukrainian children that they are trying to protect, then I think every single one of those people and every bit of that decision will have been the most obscene moment in all of Hollywood history. And I hope that's not what's happening. If it turns out to be what's happening, I would encourage everyone involved to know that though it may be their moment, and I understand that, to celebrate their films, it is so much more importantly their moment to shine and to protest and to boycott that Academy Awards. And I myself, if it comes back to it, when I return, I will smelt mine in public.
He publicly smelt his Oscar down to do what now? That'll end the war, Sean. By the way, I would be remiss if I did not note that Bill Nye the Science Guy and Sean Penn seem to be becoming the same person slowly. It's very interesting. Now listen, what Sean Penn is doing and documenting what's going on with Zelensky in Ukraine, that's fine, that's good. But the point here, which is that Sean Penn and the rest of Hollywood do think of themselves as the moral imprimatur for the rest of the universe, it's silly. And the silliness is on full display. So right before the Oscars, Jamie Lee Curtis gets up and she's on the red carpet. And there she is, smiling, posing for the cameras and wearing, that's right, a ribbon, a blue ribbon for Ukraine. Bravery. Fearless heroism from Jamie Lee Curtis, wearing the ribbon. This is the point where they beat the living crap out of Kramer because he won't wear the AIDS ribbon. But yeah, they're wearing the ribbons, guys, and that's what the Oscars are all about. It's demonstrating solidarity with our favorite causes. So speaking of which, if Hollywood has one cause above all other causes, it is the LGBTQ cause. It's the only thing Hollywood cares about these days. It is the grand difference between Hollywood and the rest of you rubes. You believe that men are men and women are women. You believe that kids should not be taught sex in schools. This is because you are a bigot. And here to tell you all about your bigotry are three extraordinarily unfunny people: Wanda Sykes, Amy Schumer, and Regina Hall. Now, I will admit to you, I've not seen a thing that one of these people is in for years. I'm not sure I've ever seen a movie with Regina Hall. Amy Schumer's material I will run from like the Black Death. And Wanda Sykes may have been funny 15 years ago, but I'm not sure. Like, did they dredge these people up out of the bay? Like, where did they, like, who at the Oscars was like, you know what the audience is clamoring for? They are clamoring for three women who have been in a combined total of 0 hits for a while. That's what the audience is desperate for. Bring back Amy Schumer. The campaign was in full swing. And how could the Oscars deny it? So they led off, as you knew they would, right? If I had to make my Oscar predictions, I didn't care about who's going to win Best Picture because, frankly, I've seen some of them, but nothing has really blown me away this year. But the one prediction I would have made is that they would have opened with the Florida stuff. Like, absolutely, because they can't help themselves. The only cause that matters to Hollywood is LGBTQ causes. That's all that matters. All the rest of it is window dressing. Ukraine does not matter to them. Suffering abroad does not matter to them. Climate change does not matter to them. This is the only thing that matters to them. And the reason it's the only thing that matters to them is because their alternative moral code is the only thing that matters to them, and it's what a lot of them believe ought to be indoctrinated into kids, which is why they're very upset with this Florida bill. So this Florida bill, obviously, which has become the cause celeb in Hollywood for no reason whatsoever, considering that what the bill says is you don't get to indoctrinate small children into sexual orientation and gender identity. And all of Hollywood is very, very upset about this. I knew for a fact that they would be chanting gay within the first 5 minutes of the Oscars, for sure. And then they wonder why the Oscar ratings are go down. Maybe it's because when I was a kid, I was like 10, 11 years old, my mom really liked watching the Oscars. And so we, like a lot of other families, we'd get together in the den and we'd all watch the Oscars, and my dad would fume at the annoyance of it. And we'd get through the 9-hour show together, and it was sort of a family bonding event. You'd mock the Oscars and all of that. Hey, there's no way in hell I would put my children in front of a screen with these morons on it. There's just no way I would do it. Would you? I mean, their overt attempt here is to indoctrinate your kids into ridiculous values, like why small kindergartners should know about homosexuality and gender identity and transgender theory. So I knew for a fact within the first 5 minutes they would be smacking you over the head with the mallet of the Florida parental protection bill. So here they were last night, our great comedic minds all together combined, Amy Schumer, Wanda Sykes, and Regina Hall, who may together be able to tell a joke, maybe. Here was Wanda Sykes. It's so funny, guys. So much humor happening right here.
We're going to have a great night tonight, and for you people
You're not,
in
though.
Florida, we're going to have a gay night. Gay.
Oh, the bravery. Ironically, John Travolta, the only one not laughing in the cutaway there. But yes, that's. And then the music comes up and the lights come up in the background. The heroism of a bunch of people who all agree that small children should be indoctrinated into the joys of homosexuality and gender identity. Yes, Hollywood, yes. Okay. And then they're all Meg Ryaning it from When Harry Met Sally to the chants of these three very, very unfunny people saying gay over and over. Okay, so it begins with this, and these are your moral betters. And then we get Amy Schumer, again, who I don't know when people thought Amy Schumer was funny, but she has not been funny for a very, very long time. She made a pay gap joke, because that one's not tired. And her joke was that the Oscars hired these three women because it was cheaper than hiring one man.
This year, the Academy hired 3 women to host because it's cheaper than hiring one man.
Well, I mean, one man, actually any man, would have been funnier than those 3 women. You could have hired a janitor off the street, and he would have been funnier than those 3 women. As one of my producers noted, Chris Rock provided more humor in one moment this evening than all 3 of those women did across the combined 27 hours of this Oscar telecast. So, yeah, that's that. You get 3 women cheaper than hiring. Honestly, I wonder how much money each of these women made last year. I have a feeling none of them are poor, even though they're really not good at their job. Then Wanda Sykes, she's back for more. She's here to make a Mitch McConnell joke because there's nothing the public likes better than a joke about the Senate minority leader. Now, last I checked, the Senate majority leader is Chuck Schumer, who is related to Amy. And the president of the United States is a doddering old fool named Joe Biden. Don't worry, we'll get to him. And the vice president of the United States is Kamala Harris, who's from California, where this event took place. And the Speaker of the House is Nancy Pelosi, who's a Democrat from California. But they found a way to make a joke about Mitch McConnell and toxic masculinity that just, I mean, this must have gone over gangbusters in that writer's room. They were probably bouncing off the walls. They were laughing so hard, slapping people, falling on the ground, just spastically screaming in hilarity because of this joke. Man, here we go. Wanda Sykes making, have you ever heard a bad Mitch McConnell joke? I mean, there's no such thing.
You know, this year we saw a frightening display of how toxic masculinity turns into cruelty towards women and children.
I tell you, damn that Mitch McConnell.
I know.
All of this was prelude to the greatest moments, maybe in Oscar history. I hope you enjoyed that clip from The Ben Shapiro Show. If you did, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you stay up to date with all our future content.